Okay, here you go. Okay, I have shared with you the CI, the slides, and the notes in the e-learning. Um, we have two classes or two sections, section 1 and section 4 combined, because at the beginning we thought that it is not that many people around, but somehow during the real registration or the release of the pre-registration, the name basically pop up. But never mind. Maybe in the physical class, we are going to change to only one room, perhaps a big theater room there, D10. Okay, we will inform you later. But eventually, I think it's not as many, maybe around 60, 61 student around. That should be okay. Okay, let's go ahead with the CI first. In the CI, there are three CLO, course learning outcome number 1, number 2, and then number 3. The one that I highlighted in color is the one that you should concern. Okay, don't worry about the whole wording, because the wording basically come from the EAC kind of manuals, so it makes things complicated. The one that we want to focus is based on the highlighted one. First thing first, CLO1. CLO1, we are going to focus on discussing or explaining various issues and challenges in the construction industry, as long as in management, for instance. When we talk about management, automatically things in the construction industry will be very much related. And then we are going to talk about management, development, and process. And then another keyword there is basically life cycle phases. And this element, basically, we put in the lecture topic, okay, from week number 1 until week number 4. If you notice, this is the CI. This is lecture number 1. This is lecture number 2. This is lecture number 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So that's why CLO number 1, I put all the slides lumped together as in CLO number 1, and then lecture 1 until 7. So lecture 1 until 7 basically mean this topic. So perhaps in the next few weeks, okay, by week number 4, we should be able to complete CLO1, all about concept and theory, okay? Reading things. Okay, that would be CLO number 1. And CLO number 1, the assessment is basically based on PLO 11. So you can read at the end of here, in this page number 3, page number 4, what is PLO number 11, sorry. PLO number 11 is about project management and finance. Well, this class is all about project management and finance anyway, okay? So that is a big thing. Not many classes in UTM, in Faculty of Civil Engineering, do have this kind of assessment. I think the one that we have is basically this class plus the IDP. Maybe IDP 1 or 2, something like that, okay? So this is the origin where basically our CLO was being developed based on PLO 11. And then how do we assess you in CLO number 1? If you look at the assessment for the coursework here, the PR stands for project. So this is for the coursework. So 15% of the coursework to evaluate your understanding about CLO number 1 will be by doing a project, individual project. So all the assessment in our class will be individual, no group project, okay? But the mark is quite big anyway, 50%. And I will release the project very soon, even though the deadline could be at the end of week number 9, but normally we will release it together so that you can see the connection between what are the things that we talk about and what are the issues that we are going to raise. Well, when we talk about project, the project will focus on certain issue. We normally will focus on only one issue in the project. Okay, in the class we are going to talk about many issues, but in the project we can only raise one. Example, last semester we did raise the issue of unethical practices in the construction industry. Okay, what could be the form, the type, the form, and the factors? What could be the impact, and what could be the strategy related to the unethical practices? Because that is the things that have been bothering construction industry for many years, even until now. And previously, in the previous semester, not last semester, the other semester, we raised the issue about project delay, because that could be one of the critical issue as well. And this semester, we are going to raise the issue about digital technology in line with the construction 4.0. Because, well, at the end of the day, when you start working, you are going to see those kind of things a lot, even though it might not be widespread right now, but in the future, that could be the common things, okay? So it is better for you to explore those kind of things in this class or in other classes as well. So that could be the point that we are going to focus in project number 1. All right, then final, F stands for final. So 15% of the mark, 15% meaning to say out of the 50% of the total mark for the final, and coursework will be 50% as well. And normally we are going to have one question, Q1, related to CLO number 1. We will ask basically perhaps whatever issue, okay, very similar to the project concept. So if you have done your project excellently, you should be able to answer finalizing question. Unless you copy paste whatever thing, then you are going to have a trouble. All right, so that would be CLO number 1. Okay, I repeat, CLO number 1 basically focus on various issues and challenges, management and development process, which we are going to see in a few of the topic from week number 1 until week number 4. And then that basically relate to the project life cycle. Okay, so that will be CLO number 1. And then after we completed CLO number 1, perhaps in week number 5, then we will start going into CLO number 2. CLO number 2, as highlighted there, a few wording there, construction schedule and critical path method. In short, I would say the keyword in CLO number 2 is about planning and scheduling. This is the keyword. Planning and scheduling. Planning and scheduling, as you would later on learn, is being considered as the heart of project management. Heart of the project management, meaning to say the core things. So that's why we emphasize planning and scheduling as a big part, a big chunk of our content. Okay, in CLO number 1, we already introduced the concept of planning scheduling in this topic. Okay, starting from here, week number 5, 6, and 7 would basically focus on CLO number 2. There are a few topics around that we are going to cover. Introduction, various scheduling technique, and then network technique, what we call concept and terminology, and then we are going to go into critical path method and we are going to zoom into various techniques such as bar chart, arrow diagram, and PDM diagram. Okay, why do we learn about this thing, planning scheduling, in the 5th week until 7th week? Well, it is simply because on the subsequent week after the semester break, from week number 9 until the end of the semester, which basically related to CLO number 3, is all about resource management. This is the keyword. Resource management is the application of planning and scheduling. Without knowing or mastering planning and scheduling on, say, CLO number 2, let's say you basically fail to understand CLO number 2 for whatever reason, you will have difficult time in understanding things related to CLO 3, because all the topic in CLO number 3 is the application of planning and scheduling. Okay, so the rest of the semester, second half of the semester, it looks like many topics, but all topic basically span for instance, in one whole week we are going to explain about labor management. When we talk about labor management, then there is a concept of resource smoothing, leveling, and then the subsequent week we are going to talk about project crashing, for instance, project cash flow, project monitoring. And the last 2 weeks, okay, the last 2 weeks, we are going to have a demonstration on software. We are going to use Microsoft Project as demonstration so that you can see the connection between doing scheduling manually and then perhaps use the software in order to solve scheduling problem. Well, in reality, outside there, nobody uses this manual anymore because we are dealing with thousands and thousands of activities. But in our class, as a fundamental, you need to understand how to construct the schedule. Normally, in the test, in the final exam, we are going to give you around 20 activities only. Even with that, you will take, some of you would normally take about 1 hour in order to solve problem. But in reality, once you have the software, you can do it very fast. But the issue with software, it is like the concept of GIGO, garbage in and garbage out. If you do not know the fundamental, you input the data wrongly, and then you are going to generate the output wrongly as well, without knowing where basically to correct or to detect the error, because you do not learn the fundamental. So in our class, fundamental must be there first, then come the application. We might not have the luxury of showing all kind of software around. In Malaysia, for instance, the more popular one could be Microsoft Project and Primavera. But normally, if you want to be expert in project scheduling, you need to take up courses and after courses. That is the proper way of doing things. In university, we just basically spark the knowledge, okay? Bit by bit with regard to certain topics, and then it is up to you to explore further. That is the normal thing that everybody have to go through the process anyway. Okay. Then how do we assess you in CLO number 2? Okay, we have talked about CLO number 1. CLO number 2 is based on PLO number 1. So if you go down the list, what is PLO number 1? Okay, PLO number 1 is technical skill. In our syllabus, in Faculty of Civil Engineering, normally all the subject would have the technical skill kind of PLO, either PLO 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, PLO 1 is very normal because it is fundamental knowledge. So you need to have the fundamental knowledge first, and then followed by 1 or 2 what we call generic skill. So in our class, PLO 1 is the one that we choose, And then the last one would be PLO 1, PLO 11. Of course, PLO 11 is very much related to our subject anyway. So PLO 1 is for CLO 2 and also PLO 1 for CLO number 3. So how do we assess you in terms of CLO number 2? Okay, we are going to have 2 items here. Homework number 1. Homework number 1 is dedicated toward planning and scheduling. We are going to give you a few questions, normally like 3 questions related to, normally our question is very much the previous exam question. It is as if to prepare you mentally and conceptually to be prepared for the final exam. Sometimes people sit for the final exam without knowing the proper format, even though they might have the knowledge, but at the end of the day, without understanding how to resolve the problem, that could be the issue. That could be the issue. So we kind of in line with that. And then we are going to have a test, only one test for this course. And the test is related to CLO2 only, not CLO1 and not CLO3. Okay, so meaning to say, you are not going to have very much difficulties reading all kind of topics because we already tell you it is related to only CLO number 2. And the test normally going to be done in around week number 13, normally. And all section normally will sit for the same test. So we are going to have only one common test for all 4 sections. Okay, and then final exam. Final exams seem to the biggest portion will be in CLO2, 20%, and we are normally going to put them into question number 2. There might be a few part A, B, and C, whatever things. A perhaps could have some what we call theoretical knowledge about planning, scheduling, etc., etc. B and C would be basically all related to calculation. So you notice that starting from CLO number 2 and CLO number 3, the calculation kind of question will basically begin. Okay, and from the history, 50% of the calculation will be in the final exam, whereas the other basically is theoretical, coming from CLO1, and then perhaps a little bit on CLO2, and then a little bit on CLO number 3. Okay, and then lastly, CLO number 3. We are going to assess you based for the coursework, 2 homework number 2 and then homework number 3. Homework number 2 again will ask question related to a few topics, normally cash flow, which is very important because as you notice, our class is about project management and finance, so the element of finance must be there. And then perhaps another question would be related to resource smoothing, leveling. Another question would normally related to project crashing. So all the topic would normally be covered in either test, in either homework, or in either project, or in a final exam. You see, nothing is being left out. That should be the whole idea. And then homework number 3 normally is dedicated toward the Microsoft project, because we are going to demonstrate Microsoft project only. We are going to demonstrate, but then if you do not do anything, you might not get the whole idea. So we better give you something in order for you to work out, okay, at home using whatever available software. And then basically you are going to duplicate. For my class, normally I will come up with not very complicated things. Everybody can do it, okay, to get the idea of how Microsoft project works. That is the whole idea. In order to know the detail, you need to go for courses after courses, as I mentioned earlier. And then lastly, final exam, 15%. mark for this CLO number 3, and we are going to put into question number 3. Question number 3, which might consist of A and B question. Last semester, for instance, we focus on cash flow calculation, so calculation base. So normally in calculation, if you have done your assignment well, you should be able to answer the question, unless you do not really understand what you did in the assignment. That would be a different story. Normally people who get stuck, they do not explore the whole things about the assignment, copy paste from friend, whatever things. Then we know who basically learn and who basically do not learn anything in this class. Okay, and here at the end of the table here, there is a summary. So again, I recap. Project will go into CLO number 1. Homework number 2 and test will go CLO number 2. And lastly, homework 2 and 3 will go into CLO number 3. Okay, and these are the portion of the marks, the coursework, and of course the final exam will be like this. CLO 1 15%, and the rest CLO 2 and CLO 3 will be 35%. So meaning to say the calculation part is quite a lot there. Okay, maybe around 50, 55 to a certain extent, could be around 60% of the total final exam marks. Okay, so there you go, the CI. So any questions so far? Okay, all right. So if there is no question,
Doctor.
Okay, good. If there is no question on this thing, I will close the CI, then straight away go into my slide for lecture number 1. Okay, here we go. All right. So there are 2 slides that I'm going to cover today. Lecture number 1 and lecture number 2, which basically is the same, based on the same topic anyway, but I split into 2 because sometimes in a normal situation we might take longer, but now we do not have much time. Normally this semester is very short with all kind of holidays, so we must finish 2 topics by today anyway. Overview on the construction industry. Why we need to understand about construction industry? Simply because once you graduate, automatically you will be in the construction industry, whether you like it or not. This will be your life. Okay, let's say you start working at the age of 23 until, I don't know, until the pension off. If you are in the private sector, they don't care about whether you are 60 or 65. You can work as long as you wish. If you are the owner of the company, perhaps until you die also. So this would be your home, I would say. Most of the time you will be in the office compared to being at your home, because normally young people will be bullied by all the senior. Most of the time you need to come to the construction site even at night, even during weekend. Well, that is part and parcel of the life anyway. Okay, we do have a few topics to cover: introduction, basic nature of the construction industry, stakeholders, type of the construction project, main process, issue and challenges will be in lecture number 2, 2 topic. Okay, let me get my pen. Here, this will be on lecture number 2 slide. Okay, normally, if you read what we call economic report, where to get this economic report? Normally, during the annual budget presentation, the Prime Minister will present whatever things, budget, and then there are very thick book that we call economic report. So you can find them in the treasury.government.my. They will basically explain the whole economy, and construction industry is part of the our economy. Normally, construction industry will be split into residential. Residential is whereby people live in a house, regardless of what type of the house, cheap or expensive. So that's what we call residential. Then commercial building, shopping mall, shop lot, things like that. Normally people do not live there, okay, normally. But nowadays, in the urban area, well, we do have what we call mixed development. They mix up everything, unlike the traditional way of doing things. In some commercial building, there is so-called SOHO, where people can buy a lot of commercial building, commercial unit. They will stay there and they will operate the office from there as well. So that is a new, what we call new way of doing things compared to the traditional way. And then infrastructure and heavy engineering, all you can see road, bridges, railway, dam, etc., etc. And then industrial, all kind of factories, basically under these kind of categories. And this is normally the one that I mark is the one being mentioned in what we call economic report and whatnot. Basic nature of the construction industry. We need to understand the characteristic of the construction industry, because from these kind of thing, we'll derive the issue and challenges that we as engineer need to be aware, because as part of our job as an engineer, we are supposed to be problem solver, not problem creator. But somehow in the real life, some people will tend to create problems. Instead of solving problems, they are the one that cause all kind of problems with regard to the attitude, commitment, etc., etc. And other people need to solve or to resolve their problem. That would be the issue. Diverse participant. Construction industry normally do have many stakeholders, players, etc., etc. People coming from all kind of nation, state, different background, culture, and at the end of the day, the management of the construction activity work will be complicated by this kind of situation. Okay, very important sector of the construction industry. We are going to prove this thing in many of our slides. In fact, the entire slide basically for lecture number 1 is dedicated toward proving this item. Well, now let's draw a pie chart here. This is a pie chart of our economy. Our Malaysian economy comprised of a few sectors, namely manufacturing, construction is part of the sector. And then what else? Mining, perhaps, agriculture, services, oil and gas, etc., etc. Okay, services, for instance, would comprise of many things, and then not to forget about utilities, etc. And construction is part of them. And if we ask question to everybody, normally if we have physical class, there will be a different story. Online kind of class is very difficult to ask question, etc. But never mind, I ask question, I will answer the question myself. Okay, very important sector. If I ask students for many years and semester, when they take a look at this statement, for instance, in terms of the percentage, if we draw a bar chart, then we are going to split into a pie there. What could be the portion of the construction industry? And majority will answer like, oh, because it is very important sector, it could be around 40%, 50%, 60%. To some extent, people do answer even 70%. Okay, that would be the typical answer. We are going to see those answers later on in the subsequent slide. And then number 3, the demand of construction industry and services depend on other industry. Okay, so construction industry is all about supply and demand. It's all about supply and demand. When there is a demand, then basically we need to construct. If there is no demand, then there is no need to construct. So it's very much related to the economic boom or economic recession, very much related. And then construction industry is also will act as a catalyst to basically kickstart many other industry. To a certain extent, in literature, people say there are up to 120 plus other industry. So that could be the strong point to emphasize on how important of this construction industry. Okay, then government play important part. We are going to see in the next slide about GDP, gross domestic product, and from that you are going to see the connection on the government spending, and also you are going to see the connection with regard to the federal budget. So that's why I put a few things in this slide in order for you to understand this slide. Okay, this slide number 5 do have the backup kind of explanation. Engaged transient workforce. Construction industry normally employ around 1.3 million workforce. Professional-wise could be around less than 10%. The rest could be considered as workers. Okay, and out of these workers, normally they will come and go into the workplace, especially at the construction site. And when they do come and go, it makes the management of the workforce become more difficult compared to stable workforce. Why? Because later on we will explain, okay, when we come to lecture number 2 later on. Highly competitive industry. Well, this industry normally employ what we call tendering process, which very much in a secretive form. Okay, nobody knows about the outcome, and it basically promote many unethical things. Especially, people would like to know what could be the what we call office estimate price, so that they will match the price so that there is a higher chance to get the project, for instance. And then somebody will basically break the news for them with certain payment. That is an example of unethical practices. And then construction industry is known as the industry that will subcontract. Sub. So what could be the issue with regard to the sub? There could be certain issue that we are going to talk in the lecture number 2. Quality control has been, there are many issues that we have seen for many years, starting from CIMP, Construction Industry Master Plan, before the year 2000, and then before then 2025, and then after 2025, there will be many unresolved issues, such as quality, such as safety and health, such as sustainability, such as productivity, such as foreign workers, such as corruption, such as pricing, etc. Those are unresolved issues. Quality is one of them, always one of the things that people will talk about. Okay. All right, hold it. In the construction industry, there are many stakeholders, not to mention association, professional body, etc. We are talking about stakeholders first. Okay. There are main stakeholders, namely client. Client must be there first. Without client, there is no project. Project will not exist without the client. And then client will normally, in a traditional practice, will normally seek for consultant. Consultant could be many. We do have a specific topic for this slide anyway. I think slide number 4, perhaps 4 or 5. But since it is here, so I just simply go very fast. Consultant could be architect, could be civil engineer, structure engineer, mechanical, electrical, etc., etc., etc. And then client need contractors who eventually will build based on whatever consultant design. And then we do have another person or company, whatever name we can associate with, we call it project manager. Okay, in this situation, we will explain later on. The project manager, when you hear about the word project manager, most of us would normally associate project manager working at the construction site, working with the contractor. That would be the normal thing. So that's why you need to come to the class. Once you come to the class, you are going to get the right terminology, the right knowledge, because outside there, when you learn things without going through the proper structure, well, you can gain knowledge outside of the university or textbook, but then you are going to get the knowledge in haphazard manners. When you get knowledge in a not a proper manner, it is very difficult to basically explain back to people, because you do not know what is the head, what is the body, and what is the tail. So it is always good to have the knowledge in a structured manners. Okay, we are giving you the knowledge in a structured manner anyway. So project manager, normally the project manager would normally being hired by a contractor, and they are going to be put at the construction site. So that is what we call project manager. But project manager actually is the term referring to a person who basically manages a project. It is like engineer. Engineer is the one that design things actually. And project manager can also be working with what we call so-called client. And when they are working with the client, well, they could work directly with the client under the client firm, or they could basically work under a consultant called project management consultant. Then their position or their name, we call it project manager as well, but the organization that they work with is different from the contractor. So meaning to say, in the final exam or whatever thing, if we ask you the responsibility, the differences between responsibility of project manager working with the client or PMC versus contractor, the answer could be different. They are not the same, because one is working under or as an advisor to the client, and another one is working under contractor. Contractor is the one that have to manage or construct the project. So they do have different kind of responsibility compared with project manager working under consultant. All right. So that is the sometimes very common misleading terminology if you do not get the whole understanding. Secondary stakeholders, authority must be there. Authority basically government authorities, and in Malaysia we do have federal agency, state agency, local government agencies, financier, and then we have supplier, subcontractor, end user. Who will be the end user? Okay, the one that will utilize the building, the facilities, that will be the end user. It is not to say that they are the end user and public and NGO, they are not contractually binded in such a way, but they might be needed in terms of the input. Oftentimes, when consultant design facility, which basically do not take into account user input, that facility at the end of the day need to be modified, as we already experienced in our classroom. If you notice, if you go to many classrooms, the original design was different. Meaning to say the screen is being put in the wrong direction. Then later on, when the project finishes, hand over to FKA, for instance, or UTM, then the UTM need to modify things, which basically wastes a lot of money. Okay, not only this kind of facility, many facility. It could be house, it could be factory, all kind of things, which basically do not take into account user. And you know how much money being wasted for renovation purposes for newly handover premises, billion and billion. Okay, why can't we do something right? Okay, we just basically construct something right, and there is no more renovation immediately after that. Maybe a few more years, that would be a different story. We are talking about immediately. You notice when people receive the keys for the house, immediately they will call contractor to renovate, to add here and there. And then when you want to add here and there, you need to basically demolish certain part of the build, wall, etc., etc. That is basically is a waste. Okay, why don't that could be the issue. Now we are going to prove construction industry as very important industry. Okay, let's take a look at this classic example. Infrastructure project plus highway. Now perhaps after the completion of Pen Borneo, that will be another classic one. Very interesting thing. For the new lecture, for instance, they can explore that kind of example. You can see before and after. Let's see, let's take a look at, okay, before having this kind of highway and after this highway completed, what kind of development on the left and right hand side of the highway along the whole stretch, in order to explain the impact of the construction industry to many other economic sector. For instance, PLAS was being considered as big project, mega project at that time. Cost around 7.3 billion at that time, was considered very big. Not only big in terms of the funding, big in terms of the area being involved, many states involved, many things. Okay, and this kind of infrastructure project can generate 124 other industry. Big industry is like this, is the one that we mentioned, and not to mention small industry. If we can split into a small micro industry, whatever the industry, then only you can understand. But we just focus on big industry anyway. Education. If you notice, in 1993, after 1993, 1994, how many universities around? Right now, I think public university around, I don't know, maybe 23 public university, and not to mention private university compared to the before 1993. Perhaps UTM has been there, okay, maybe less than 10. Why we need many universities? Because once we do have a big project, meaning to say there is a demand for engineer, there is a demand for whatever professional with a university degree, with diploma holder, and not to mention about the one that have certification, maybe coming from polytechnic or what we call other institution that offer that kind of certification level. Without those kind of demand, then basically we don't need to build many universities, because at the end of the day, where do these graduates going to work? That could be the issue. Okay, so when there is a demand, then only the supply will be there. Okay, that would be one thing. Finance. In the old time, Renong was the company that managed this project. I think they were forced to take a loan, okay, from overseas. So taking loan from overseas not only cause certain issue such as the currency exchange, whatever things, and then the money basically flow into foreign countries. But what to do? Because our bank at that time do not dare to lend or to give money for such a big project because you never know. You have read in the news, for instance, certain bank have to bail out certain failed project who basically started but never completed. But then who is going to pay for unfinished product? The bank have to bear all kind of things. And the one that basically did the project basically have been declared bankrupt. You cannot get the payment anymore. So at the end of the day, bank basically at risk. So that's why bank basically have to assess and then basically have to think many times in order to finance for a big project which is could be uncertain. Okay, but nowadays, if we compare before and after 1994, for instance, we have gone through a few merger process. The bank that you have known today, for instance, CIMB, Maybank, all kind of Hong Leong Bank, whatever thing, they have gone through a merger process, merged with a smaller bank. Why basically a bank merged into a bigger one? Because they want to consolidate fund, meaning to say a lot of money will be pooled and put into one big bank. And when you do have a big pool of money, for instance, they can finance or they can give loan to finance project development. And nowadays, many of the project in Malaysia being financed by the local bank, okay, by the local bank. Meaning to say, the bank, once the bank do have a big fund, for instance, they do not afraid if something gone wrong with regard to certain mega project because they still have a certain buffer. That is the whole idea. So we have heard that after the previous merger, government was trying to come up with a mega bank, actually mega bank. They call it mega bank, but until now they did not materialize those things yet. Okay, that is the whole idea. All right. So number two, number three, manufacturing. If you notice, manufacturing basically factory who basically produce product after product, where basically the manufacturing or factory basically normally being located. If you look at the map, the traditionally people basically put up a factory near the seaport, near the airport. If you go to the Pasir Gudang, if you go to the Senai, if you go to Port Klang, if you go to Tanjung Pelepas as well, if you go to what we call Penang, full of factory after factory that operate 24 hours. Are they producing product? It is meant for Malaysian consumption? No. 24 hours cheap. They produce cheap. What for? We do not have that many computers anyway. It was meant for global export. So the product need to be produced fast and then shipped very fast. So that's why they are putting all kind of things near the seaport and port. But the issue is that all those land near the seaport and the port basically over a period of time will be more expensive and become depleted. So they need to find land which is much cheaper. But then the issue is that how do you get your product transported fast? So you need to have infrastructure. So this is where the highway, road, bridges, railway perhaps could play a very important point. So meaning to say, all kind of factory can be built somewhere else, where you can find land at very cheaper, where you can basically build near the community where people can go to work easily, etc., etc. But then providing, you need to have a good infrastructure. And this is where highway play part in terms of logistics. But unfortunately, we are only at the beginning of embarking on railway. We start with the ECRL, and ECRL was not supposed to be the one and only. Actually, the whole peninsula supposed to be connected with that kind of rail, but depending on the money that we have, okay. But eventually, that should be built first. Railway should be built first. And you notice that all our highway now is jam-packed with all kind of lorry, car, etc., and all the fatal accident being caused by the lorry, the trailer, truck, etc. Well, by right, if you look at the developed nation, they develop a good railway system, and all the big truck basically use mostly railway. There are some basically still using the highway anyway, but to a certain extent, we can basically minimize the highway accident. Okay, so manufacturing nowadays, if you look at on the left hand side and right hand side of highway plus highway on certain stretch, full of housing, full of factories, and then not to mention agriculture, especially in Johor area. Okay, if you drive starting from Skudai until Melaka, whatever, you can see on the left and right hand side full of agriculture, isn't it? At least palm plantation. And palm plantation, the issue with palm, you need to get the palm seed, whatever, very fast. And then you need to have a processing plant. So all this, in order to develop a processing plant, it could cost you a few million, maybe 100 million, whatever thing. Could be costly. But with the help of the networking, road, bridges, whatever things, you can have the agricultural land everywhere, and no need to build a factory processing of the palm oil, whatever. You just need a lorry or truck, whatever, to transport all the palm seed into the nearby processing plant, could be Pasir Gudang, whatever things. So you can centralize those kind of things. That is why we need a good infrastructure. And when we have factories, when we have housing estate, etc., then we need all kind of services. School, we need a shop, we need all kind of bank, all kind of services. We need to have utilities, electricity, water, internet connection, etc., etc. And you can see, places near Kuala Lumpur. If you go from Kuala Lumpur using Plus Highway to the north until Rawang, Sungai Buloh, etc., and even down south there, Seremban, even Aikro will be full of housing. Instead of agriculture, they are now packed with housing after housing. Seremban 2. Now we are waiting for Seremban 3, Seremban 4, Seremban 5, Seremban, all kind of Seremban, even though it is very far from Seremban. Still, they utilize the highway and name after whatever city anyway. Okay, lastly, tourism. This is the one that I want to emphasize. Malaysia, starting from, let's take a look at this statistic. Way back in 1990s, the receipt or the amount of money that we can collect from tourism, not much, 4.5 billion. And then over the years, throughout the whatever event that happened, including the COVID, but this is up to 2010, we can see the increase in the tourism receipt. Meaning to say we can get income from tourism, which we could not expected before. We thought that traditionally, in order to get income, could be from mining, could be from agriculture, etc., etc. But nowadays, things change. Tourism could be one of the income. And nowadays, with the advance of AI, whatever things, you can make more money, new industry coming in, okay, to Malaysia. And nowadays, last 2023, we're collecting 71 billion, except the only thing that we didn't get much is during COVID. Okay, that is expected anyway, worldwide restriction on traveling. And how much income we generate in 2024? We collected 102. And the number of tourists coming would be 25 million. This could be one of the income to Malaysia. Maybe tourism could be number, I don't know, number 5 perhaps. Number is quite big. It's getting bigger and bigger. And talking about tourism, why do people come to certain country or places? Well, other than the attraction, one of the things that people consider are the facilities, the connectivity, the logistic, the nature of tourists. Okay, sometimes you went to somewhere to travel, for instance. Well, if you are rich people, then that will be different story. Rich people normally less than 5% in any country anyway, 5 to 10 perhaps. Majority of us is normal people. We do not have a lot of money, and we do not have the luxury of time. When you start working, then you find you are having difficulties to even apply for leave. Many days of leave. Boss will look at you somehow. So limited budget, limited leave, number of leave. So that's why when you travel to a certain country for a holiday with limited budget and limited number of days that you can spend, you want to see most of the places. But most of the time, in certain country, you have a limited logistic. In order to arrive from one point to another point, it might take the whole day. If you go to heavily populated nation like Indonesia, for instance, Indonesia, in comparison to Malaysia, they do have much more attraction, but unfortunately, not much development in terms of logistic, in terms of infrastructure, road. I have been to place like Padang twice in 20 years. Repeat, because of the work, not because I want to travel anyway, because of the work. So after 20 years, went there again, and Bukit Tinggi is like the Cameron Highland there. Oh my God, the road still remain the same. Maybe now it's getting smaller and smaller for whatever reason. It took like the whole day to travel to like less than 100 kilometer away. If we are going to travel in Malaysia using Plus Highway, 100 kilometer, we will arrive in perhaps 1 hour or 1.5 hours. But there, take the whole day going back and forth. Just imagine. Okay? And normally, long time ago, if we compare our country to Singapore, Singapore is like the middle of everywhere. Okay? If you look at the flight path, for instance, so Singapore is just in the middle from the east and west. That's why they get a lot of number of visitors as a transit. But then visitor like to see Singapore around. But let's say they take one or 2 day extra transit, but then they only spend like 1 day or less than that, then finish. You cannot go everywhere in Singapore anyway. Only a few years that they come up with all kind of things. Perhaps you can spend more time. Then let's say they want to encroach into Malaysia. So they need to basically go through the Tambak Johor, second link, whatever. And perhaps another day they can spend in Johor Bahru. Let's say they have another day, they can spend even far away to Kuala Lumpur. If they have Malacca, Kuala Lumpur, and then if they have another day, for instance, they might spend go even until Penang. See, if they have 5 days, for instance, they can encroach into many areas. And that is the function of logistics. Okay, so if we want to be to be very serious in many things, especially tourism, whatever thing. So we need to develop our infrastructure so that everywhere, every places in Malaysia are well connected. Remember what China did in their country? They basically built road after road that connected to nowhere, even in the desert area. They just built road after road because even though there is nobody live around the area yet, but believe me, over a period of time, okay, slowly and steadily, there will be all those areas will be developed. People will come. Once you have a good connection, then people will start building houses, etc., etc. Because in order to build road and etc., it's quite expensive anyway. Now the government have come up with those things. Why not? We just basically use those kind of what we call things in order to connect with the housing project, etc., etc. Okay, and we can be very feel very proud that Malaysia, for instance, normally being listed in top 10 visited countries. Even our city also is listed there, and if we take into account Muslim traveler, Kuala Lumpur will be among the top, normally number one in the world, liked by Muslim traveler because of all kind of things that they can get here. All right, so that would be example of how construction industry can promote other industry as well. Now, I want to emphasize on the contribution of construction industry to our GDP, okay, to our economic sector. First thing first, we need to understand about GDP. What is GDP? GDP, okay? GDP is what we call gross domestic product. Maybe you have learned this thing in, I don't know, economic class, whatever thing. Or in Malay language, we call it KDNK. KDNK. Keluaran dalam negara kasar. So what is gross domestic product? Gross domestic product is normally being shown in terms of percentage growth, that consists of the following element: C plus I plus E plus G. This is G. What is C? C is consumer spending. How much amount of consumer spending? Consumer mean everybody. If people spend a lot, buying things here and there, going shopping, and especially Hari Raya, going to the mall, TikTok, Shopee, Lazada, whatever, so that amount is basically will be counted. And then plus the I, investment made by industry, whatever industry, could be coming from construction industry, could be coming from manufacturing, etc., etc. And then excess of export over import. If tourists coming to our country, that would be good. Meaning to say we get money in. If we are the one that go into other country, meaning to say our money is going out. Okay, so we do exporting, we do importing, and the most important thing, the export must be more than the import. That is what we call excess of money that will go into this equation. And lastly, government spending. You see, government basically do play important part. If government put a lot of money into project development, as we are going to see in the other side, then perhaps we know that our economy is booming. Okay, booming. So GDP is the measurement of the economic health of a country. Let's say if you want to know whether you are healthy or not, if you go to the clinic, the first thing that doctor will do on you is basically to put a temperature, isn't it? That temperature is indicator to see whether you are healthy or not. If your temperature goes into certain range, but that kind of indicator does not mean bad thing happening in your country, you need to further investigate. But as a quick way of uh, knowing whether the economic of the country is okay or not, whatever thing, progressive growth, or basically having kind of slump, GDP is the one that people always refer to. Okay, now let's take a look at how much is our GDP based on this data. This data is basically taken from, I mentioned to you, the budget. Normally every year on October, the federal government will release a budget for Malaysia. Every country will have their own budget anyway. And this is what we call economic data. So GDP in Malaysia, for instance, based on 2025 is expected to be 1.7 trillion, 1.7 trillion ringgit, RM. That will be on 2025. On 2024, the previous year, is 1.6 6 trillion. Okay, 6 trillion. Okay, something plus something. I just take the whole value. And in order to get this percentage, you need to subtract this one with this one, and then divide back with 1.6, and then you will get the percentage. So our GDP growth is estimated to be around 4 to 5 to 4.5, which is okay. If, for instance, let's say in 2024 you spend 1.6, the government, the GDP is 1.6, and in 2025 the government, basically the GDP is also 1.6. Meaning to say, if you subtract this kind of value, you are going to get 0%. What does 0% mean? 0% meaning to say you are not spending. It's basically the same amount. You can relate this one to your life. For instance, last year, how much money you spend in order to live, to be a university student? Okay, based on your spending, the whole amount, paying for food, residential, paying for all kind of things. Let's say it takes one amount, perhaps 50,000. Let's say 50,000. This year, 2025, if you spend the same amount, meaning to say you are going to cut down on certain things, because logically, with all kind of rising prices here and there, well, you need to spend more. If you spend on the same thing or you spend less than that, then perhaps something is not right. So similarly, this is the concept of GDP. Okay, but not to say that sometimes it is you need to investigate it further with regard to the GDP percentage, because certain country, like underdeveloped nation, sometimes the GDP could be 10% or 15%, whatever thing. It is not to say that they are advanced nation. No. They are progressing due to the way they spent previous year. That is the way we count the numbers. If you look at the big nation like China, their GDP around 2%. Singapore is also like that. US is also like that. It is not much. Why? Because they are on the maintaining mode, not advancing mode. Okay, that's why they spend. They don't need to spend that much compared to certain nation. But this is just to tell you. Later on, construction industry do basically contribute to our economy. In what way? Here, this one. You see, construction, the amount of construction industry that is counted in GDP is around 70 billion. But this is not the value. We do have another slide. The value of the construction work, the amount is much more than that. I think it is around 160 billion. to a certain extent could basically already reach 200 billion a few years back, but due to COVID, there is a setback anyway. But in terms of one being counted is only 70 billion. But in terms of the value, because sometimes when we are talking about value, there are a few things that could be double counted. Okay, for instance, you are paying salary. You are paying salary out of the project. Okay, so the project cost you already count as one thing. Salary is basically part of the project cost. And you see, that would be double counted. But anyway, what to do, that this is how basically economists come up with the concept. Okay, then now we go into federal government budget. In Malaysia, since we do have federal government, state government kind of concept, Malaysia is being run by federal government. During after the election, so certain parties will be formed. So basically, they are being handed by the king to manage Malaysia. Okay, that's what we call federal government. And in order to manage Malaysia, the federal government need money. And how much money do they need? They need around 425 billion. Where does the money come from? It could be coming from income tax, all kind of tax that we are paying, sales tax, whatever thing. It could be coming from oil and gas revenue. It could be coming from many, many sources. And out of these things, you might not know the whole thing. Never mind. I just want to emphasize only one thing here: development expenditure. This is how we connect into the whole issue that we talk about, very important sector, based on government playing the role. So federal government intend to spend 86 billion ringgit in year 2025. So when government have this kind of money, so this money will go into construction industry directly through houses, through what we call school, hospital, clinic, road, perhaps, or bridges for public uses. This is government project. So meaning to say, this is a good thing that will basically further promote construction industry growth. Previously, in many, many years, we have seen government only spend around 50, 60 billion. But starting from this year, perhaps due to the COVID, during COVID, we do not spend much money. So a lot of money basically being bring forward. So that's why we can see the amount is basically bigger than the previous year's budget, which is good for the construction industry. Okay. This is the detailing of budget anyway. And another thing, talking about what we call Malaysia economy. How big is Malaysia economy? Not big, not very big. So our economy is only 2.8 trillion ringgit. That is our economy comprised of many, many things that being counted. So you must remember, GDP is another thing. Not everything in the economy are being counted as GDP, certain portion. So GDP counted is only 1.7 billion. And federal government budget is only 421 billion to manage the country. Whereas the whole economy is much bigger than that, 2.8 billion. But having said that, 2.8 billion is nothing if you compare to big country, like the biggest economy in the world is USA. Second would be China. Third would be Germany. And the fourth would be what we call Japan. You know what? Japan was used to be number 2 for many, many, many years. Now they slip into number 4. Maybe in the next few years, they will slip into, I don't know, out of the top 10 anyway. Okay. The more population country has, normally their economy will be very big. India is also part of the top 10. Okay. For instance, the rich nation would normally qualify to be in the big economy because they can generate many things. Okay, so that's why anything happen to the big country like US and China will somehow have a big implication to country like us. Why? Because we are just like a small fish. We do export a lot of things from US to US. If US do not take up our product, then somehow our economy will somehow jeopardize. And that is the connection. So that's why in the subsequent slide, you can see whatever happened to big country or other nation will have implication to our economy. Okay, now having said about GDP normally the amount will be converted into a percentage. What does percentage mean? Percentage basically is simply the comparison between GDP amount this year and the previous year, and then you put into percentage. That represent growth, okay, economic growth. And if you plot into graph, you will see this kind of graph, up and down. And there is a economic, what we call downturn there, 2022. But if you put the plotting into a bigger range, a year's range, you can see this kind of graph, okay? Up and down. Up is the one that we call economic booming. Down is what we call economic recession, whatever thing. Okay, we have seen the down in somehow 1975, and then another down here, 1985, another down here, very famous one, 1998. I think everybody know about this history. And another down here, 2010. And then we do have another down in 2019 due to COVID, but not so much compared to previous year. And if you notice the range between each of the economic down, you can basically have the idea. What is the idea? Economy cannot basically grow in positive mode at all times. It is almost impossible. If you plot GDP of all nations in the world, so it will look like this. So meaning to say, it is as if this is like a natural phenomena. It is like hot season. Now we are having rainy season, and at another time we are going to have a hot season. Okay, it is like that, up and down. There is no situation where you have all kind of rainy every day, hot season all the year. It is not like that. But what does this thing tell us? It basically tells us that we need to be prepared. Every 10 or could be 11 or 12 years, there will be economic recession. So that's why when you have a lot of money, you do not want to spend all in anticipation that you will get the same amount of money tomorrow or next year, etc., etc. No, okay, that is not the way. You need to save some in order to prepare for the worst. You never know. So a country is also like that. So that's why we need to have some kind of reserve, so that if anything happens, we can basically sustain, pay for like 10 months of import product, etc., etc. That is the situation. But having said that, the reason for economic recession sometimes could be unpredictable, as in the case of COVID. People know already we have been bullish. Our economy has been bullish for many years, but the many experts have warned. We do have what we call property bubble at that time is about to burst. When those kind of things burst, then we are going to have economic slowdown. But nobody predicted that we are going to experience COVID. That kind of surprise everybody, not only Malaysia. automatically everything stopped, and we do have some kind of economic slowdown. But fortunately, even though we do have COVID, but we pick up very fast. Okay, we pick up very fast. Within 1 or 2 years, basically we are back on track. For instance, this, if we plot over a long period of time, longer period of time, 1960 until last year, okay, and 2024, for instance, you can see the GDP growth is always up and down. See, this is the lowest point, lowest point, lowest point, and you can notice the range in between this thing. It's almost like 10 years cycle. So you need to be prepared, okay? And now, we never know. Okay, we are booming for after the COVID, but we never know. I think perhaps because of the rise in Donald Trump kind of things, now Donald Trump mouth been putting everybody in a very unreliable situation. Maybe another war is coming, and we do not know. The trade war is on. The real war, we never know, because of the situation. If another war is coming, then the whole world will be in trouble again. We have seen war in Ukraine. We have seen the Gaza one have caused kind of unstable in many of the communities, etc., etc. We never know. Okay. And what I want to go here, this is the last graph. Even though we just basically choose only a few range of data, there are 3 graphs here. One is red in color. We start with the blue one. Okay, the blue color indicate GDP of our economy, nation GDP. Nation GDP up and down. And then the red in color indicate construction GDP, construction growth. And you notice one thing here, these 3 points. In 1985, for instance, we do have economic recession worldwide. Malaysia affected as well. And what happened to the construction industry is affected very much. What happened in 1998 due to Asian financial crisis? Wow, the construction industry is the worst hit compared to other industry like manufacturing, for instance. And then another one, 2009. 2009 is very interesting. The country being affected is only America. But as I mentioned to you, because we depend so much, we export product to America. We export the biggest amount to China, number one, and then Singapore and US, one of our biggest exporter. So if, for instance, anything happened to US, they do not take our product because the economy is also slowing down, whatever things. The one that happened in 2009 was because of the mortgage issue. A lot of people do not have the ability to pay back loan. So the whole nation was in havoc at that time. But the issue is that this is very contrary to the concept here. Normally, when we are having economic slowdown, construction industry is worst affected. Is one of the first will be affected the most. But why not in 2009, construction industry not affected? This is the classic example of how much we have learned. Okay, in 1998, when our currency, Asian currency, are being attacked by the foreign whatever things, we tend to be very panicked. We do not spend, even though the money is still there. So the panic we are in the panic mode whereby people do not spend the money. So the money will be in the bank, and there is no normal construction industry, normal people buying here and there, and the interest rate suddenly being hiked into a few double-digit interest rate, etc., etc., and nobody want to spend money to buy car, to buy clothes, etc., etc. that in that situation, it basically stopped the economic activities. So in order to avoid the same thing, what happened in 2009, government, not only Malaysian government, many government started promote what we call stimulus package. Stimulus package. Package, meaning to say government released money, reserve, billion and billion into the economy in order to prop the economy. So one of the area where government basically put the money in is into the construction industry. Remember what I told you before, construction industry stimulate about 120 or 24 other industry. So if, for instance, government are smart, learned, whatever thing, they want to stimulate economy, one of the industry that they need to take care of is the construction industry. Because once you put money on the construction industry, you start constructing things, there are many other industry will basically grow as well. So that's why we do not see the construction industry fall hard compared to the previous scenario. The stimulus package you have heard during COVID as well, the government released money, and where does the money goes? The money will goes into people's hands in terms of what we call aid or whatever thing. And when people get aid, what do? Are they going to keep in the bank? No, they are going to spend. When they spend, meaning to say the economy is going to stimulate. So the economy have to grow. If your economy gets stuck, then basically there are a lot of issue that we are going to face. Okay, so similarly with the concept. And the last one, green colored graph. If you notice, the green color graph represent here construction contribution to GDP. Remember, last year, this year is expected only 70 billion. Previous year, the amount was there in the table anyway. And you know what? By looking at this graph, it looks like the growth, the contribution to nation GDP is not much. Maybe around 3 until 5 point something. Only. Okay, you notice this table. In 1960, construction industry is only 3%. 2005, it's getting worse. And 2010, perhaps right now we are getting maybe perhaps more than 3, 3.5, 3, or the maximum I would say around 5. Even though if we compare to manufacturing, way back in 1960, not much manufacturing happening, but then it grew into bigger and bigger. But the one that we basically spoil very much is the agriculture, you see. We were agriculture nation at that time, but then the focus was shifted to industry. At the end of the day, we are having trouble with the rice right now. By right, it should be like Japan. Even though they eat rice every day, they do not import rice. So it is a homegrown. By right, we should secure our livestock, agriculture, whatever thing first, while exploring into other sector. So perhaps that could be the mistake that we need to basically recalibrate anyway. But talking about construction industry, not much. But then, if it is not much, see, not much, then how come we say the construction industry is very important sector to the economy, whereby it is not much? It's only like 3%, 3 to 5%. Well, in order to answer that, construction industry, you can imagine it is like having chili. You know, the hottest chili in Malaysia, for instance, is it the bigger one or the smaller one? Normally, the smaller the chili, the hotter it is. Is it the same concept as the construction industry? Okay, you don't have to be big. It is like bell pepper, for instance, is very big. It is like considered as chili as well. We call it we call it lada bengala, whatever thing. It's part of chili, but it is nothing compared to chili burung. In Malaysia, we call it chili burung or whatever, chili padi, which is very, very hot, very spicy. Okay, that is what construction industry is all about. And if you look at this figure, well, are you going to be feeling sad? Feeling sad in what way? Oh, you notice that, oh, this sector is not growing. What would happen to my future? Am I choosing the wrong course? Well, I do not want to choose civil engineering anyway, but my parent forced me to do so. Some of the students like that, isn't it? They do not want to choose, but somehow the parent forced them to be in civil engineering or engineering, whatever things, okay? But you don't have to be sad because of why? This 3 or 5% of the growth so far is basically showing, indicating us the potential growth is always there. If we compare this amount with the developed nation, normally the construction industry is like 9 or even 10%. They spend a lot on the construction industry. But now in Malaysia, we do not spend that much. So meaning to say there is a big potential to grow. And I would say, even though you graduate last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, there will always job in the construction industry. Never ending job. Construction, civil engineering has been a long profession, but then in terms of the job, it never ends. Why? Because there is a lot of potential to grow. If, for instance, we are going to be at par with developed nation, we need to grow, for instance, 9 to 10%, meaning to say, we do have a lot of things to build. I give you one classic example. School. Developed nation normally do have one session school only per day. But in Malaysia, we do have two. Morning session and afternoon session. Afternoon session, I tell you personally, is not going to be effective. Because you know what? People go to the school in the afternoon and then come back late afternoon. So the parent was rushing to send a student in the morning session, the afternoon session, back and forth, everything. And children who basically have evening session do not have time to play around, to play, to rest, etc., which basically affected their learning cycle. That is not good. So that's why developed nation normally only have one session. Okay, the session could be a little bit longer. Let's say start from 8 or whatever thing until 2 or 3. But then the children, after going back, they can have a rest, and in the evening they can play, go to the playground, and then at night they can have a little rest, and then revision a little bit, then go to bed early. That could be a good daily cycle. But now, because if you want to have all one session, the facility might not be enough. That is the only reason. So we need to build more school, facility, etc., etc. Once we are building those things, automatically the construction industry will be boosted. That is a classic example. And then another things, road. There are many areas that is not well connected, especially in Sabah, Sarawak, etc., which basically need more money in order to connect all the area because they do have a very vast land area and people are spread everywhere. Even in Semenanjung also, certain area, well, they do have road, but not in a proper condition. By right, they should have dual carriageway, whatever things. Okay, those basically need a lot of money. And not to forget about railway. As I mentioned, by right, we should develop our railway system connected everywhere. Right now, we are building a double tracking railway to connect from KL to Johor. Maybe by middle of the year, all all of the area will be well connected. Then only we can have a ETS or what we call electric train that go a little bit faster from JB to the northern part. Right now, we are basically constrained with the issue of tracking. Okay, maybe in the middle of the month, at the middle of the year, we are going to connect the whole north and south of Semenanjung at least. But we need another railway to connect with the East Coast, etc., etc. That would be another big project coming up, for instance. Okay, that is an example. And prospect for the construction industry 2025. In 2025 onwards, it looks like construction industry 4.0 is up and running. Perhaps in your time, you are going to see all kind of digital technology going to be used a lot. For instance, BIM, AI, machine learning, robotic, automation, 3D printing, AR, VR, sustainability focus, which basically could increase productivity, could reduce costs, could enhance safety, and improve collaboration. But having said that, even until now, we do have barrier and challenges to address in terms of skill gap, in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of regulatory law issues, etc., which need to be tackled. But it is a matter of time whereby these kind of things will be used in abundance in the next future. That's why the issue of digital technology will be elevated as one of our project exercise that you are going to do. And not to forget, okay, when we talk about this lecture number 1 and lecture number 2, you need to refer to document. In Malaysia, we do have a construction industry 4.0, and then we do have what we call a national policy document here. Sorry. Here, this is the national policy document National Construction Policy 2023 that basically explain what is the current scenario and the way forward. Okay, so please read this very important document. And then in Malaysia, normally we do have what we call governing body. As construction industry concerned, CIDB, Construction Industry Development Board, is the one that take care of the construction industry. They are the one that come up with the master plan every 5 years. And then when we are dealing with what we call safety and health, for instance, we do have Department of Occupational Safety and Health. They do have the master plan for the safety aspect as well. And we do have many other agencies that will take care in terms of what? Productivity, in terms of labor force, different document in order to help you understand. And then the construction industry growth will depend very much on mega project. As long as we do have mega project, big project ongoing, doesn't matter, maybe in a big city, Kuala Lumpur, Penang, and then Johor Bahru, in Kuching, whatever. Those kind of projects will basically fuel the construction industry growth, and construction industry is going to maintain the strong growth. Perhaps right now, we have seen construction industry growth at around 9% every year. That will be very positive growth until a few years, okay? And you can watch a YouTube video with regard to what could be the mega project still going to be constructed or under planning, for instance. If those kind of project is on, so perhaps in the next few years, I would say you can graduate happily because you are going to land yourself a good job, for instance. So be positive. There is nothing wrong you being in the civil engineering, because civil engineering, you must remember that it is the area where you can contribute. As a Muslim, for instance, you might not basically pray as much as what you are being asked, but normally you are going to spend a lot of your time working. And as a Muslim, working being considered as part of what we call your contribution to the religion, to nation, will earn you something in the hereafter. So that is the things that I want to mention in the overview of the construction industry, so that you are aware. You will be part and parcel of the construction industry. You could be part of the problem, or you could be part of the solution. We do not want to be problematic. We want to solve the problem in the construction industry. Okay, with that, we are going to take a break before we continue with slide or lecture number 2. Let me stop the